Hi there.
Hey, how are you?
I am good. How are you?
Good. How's life in California?
Oh, it's good. Summer finally came like this month, so we're all a little confused.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's been really odd. Like we've had a super mild summer, and then all of a sudden, of course, we kind of expected it because it was so mild that like now the wildfires are coming and the sun is coming out and and we're all ready for fall.
Yeah, what part of California are you in?
I'm just north of San Francisco.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. It's a balmy 65 degrees here.
Is it? Wait, where are you?
Minnesota.
True. Oh, that's okay. Yes, yeah. Wow,
Yep.
65.
Yeah. We actually for us that's perfect
Right.
weather.
I was gonna say, like, it seems well, for you in September, could it be any type of weather?
Yeah, it could be you could have a day that's 90 in
That's so
September.
crazy. Oh my gosh. Yeah, yeah.
And then you could have fifth last night the low was like 45.
Joe, my that's such a huge swing. Jeez.
It is. Well, hey, thanks for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Yeah,
And I hope that it gets that there are some people who are who watch my podcast that might reach out to you.
cool.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so I always like having a variety of different guests, and I have both professionals who do what we do, but also like athletes, coaches, agents,
Oh,
stuff
cool.
like that. So
Okay. Awesome.
yeah, yeah. Um, how's business?
Really good. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm feeling very grateful for that. Like lots of clients and a couple really cool projects coming up. So yeah, it's going really, really well. And I was just on a call. I'm gonna head to the ASP conference in Montreal and presenting with a panel for injury. So just got off a call with them and I'm very
Oh,
excited about that. Yeah. I'm not usually excited about presenting at ASP, and this time I am. I'm excited about the panel, I think.
I've
Yeah.
actually never been to that.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah,
yeah. It's kind of cool. Like if it comes near you, it's worth checking out. And just seeing, it's just kind of fun to be around other people that
yeah,
also are also in the field and love what they do and are passionate about it. Yeah.
yeah. I've done. I did. Do you know Lauren Johnson?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been to her thing a couple of times. I really like
Okay.
that.
Oh, cool.
She's not doing that this year, but yeah,
Okay.
the elite by choice thing, and that's been
Yes.
really cool to actually be around a small group of people that are like minded and see
Yeah.
things the same way. So, all right, great. Well, we'll get started so we can get you moving on with your day.
Cool.
Welcome to the Inner Athlete Podcast, where we talk all things mental fitness. Today, we are happy to be joined by Carrie Jackson. Carrie wrote the book Rebound and hosts is it the Injured Athletes Club?
Yes, the Injured Athletes
Yes.
Club.
And you have a podcast, but you also have an online community, correct?
Yes, yeah, we do.
Okay, well, great. Carrie and I met when I took one of her classes, her level up class a couple of years ago. It was a great experience. Do you guys still do that?
We do, yes. We're talking about the one coming up next year. So we do Cinder Camp off and I run that and try to do one once a year.
Yeah. Well, I absolutely recommend it for professionals who are trying to level up their businesses. So it's definitely helped me to do the same. Well, let's jump right into the questions then, Carrie.
Yeah.
Um, what's the most wise piece of advice you've ever gotten, and how do you apply it to your work?
Oh, oh gosh, I've gotten so there's a couple that immediately come to mind. I think one, and some of the advice came in more in me observing people and kind of observing their styles of leadership and the way that they worked with people. And one I would say is sometimes it's more important to listen than it is to talk because I like to talk. So I think that was a really, really valuable of just understanding the way that you can have presence as a leader by really listening and helping to empower others to talk. So I think that was a big one. And then the other I would say is just, man, just never give up because a lot of times. the thing that you're wanting to accomplish is right around the corner. And you just are never going to know that if you, so that I think that's a big one is just the perseverance and like, let's keep going.
Okay. So, tell the listeners about how you ended up in this field of sports psychology and mental performance.
Yeah, it's funny because I you wouldn't have thought that if you met me in my younger years, like working with athletes would be the last thing that you would think that I was going to be doing. And so sports was not a part of my family culture. It wasn't a part of like my growing up. What I knew that I wanted to do at that point, what I thought I knew I wanted to do was be a therapist and work with people on. So I knew I loved leadership development. I loved observing behavior, human behavior, and I thought, oh, okay, I'm going to take psychology. And as I graduated from my undergraduate degree in psychology, literally as I'm walking across the stage, I was realizing, oh, I don't think I want to do this. And then it was like, oh no, now what do I do? Because I was on my way to graduate school, and it just kind of hit me in that moment. And I had had a kind of a personal tragedy that happened on that day, and I think it was that experience and walking across the stage where I was like, this isn't it. And the reason was because that was before sort of the positive psychology movement. It was like right before that was happening. And
Mm,
so everything in psychology at that point was very much based in illness versus wellness. And with the other things that I did with leadership and outdoor education, like it wasn't making sense to me. So I ran off to Tahoe to live in South Lake Tahoe for a little while and do my sports and just figure out, well, what do I want to do now? And
mhm,
while I was there, my mom found she was going back to school for a counseling degree, saw a brochure for a sports psychology program, and she said, "Hey, I grabbed this for you. I thought you might want to check it out." And I was like, "What is this? This is amazing!" And I went to the next open house and signed up, and was just like, I had no idea what it was. I didn't know exactly what I would do with it, but I was like, "This is the direction that I want to go."
okay. Well, so what were some of your first experiences in working with athletes, and how did they shape you?
Yeah, I think, early in my career, I ended up specializing in working with cyclists and endurance athletes. And so I think that because of that, that definitely shaped my career significantly, where I've found a passion for working with endurance sports and individual sports. Although I've worked with team sports, I've worked with like all different sports. I just endurance sports really spoke to me in terms of the way that I wanted to work with clients. And so, the other thing it shaped is if you work with cyclists, inevitably you're going to be working with people coming back from a crash and people that have been injured. So that
Mm,
was early on in my experience too, is not only my own personal sports injury experiences, but also had the opportunity to work with quite a few people early in my career. Like we were working together and then they happened to crash and then we worked together through their rehabilitation.
mm. Well, I'm gonna go a little off script then from the questions.
Yeah.
Have you one of the things that I've experienced is actually having some of that own your own kind of adversity, like,
Hmm.
is really helpful. Can you say more about how your own experience of injury and rehabilitation influenced you in the way that you work?
Yeah, the experience I had with injury. So I had an injury to my left knee, meniscus tear, and I got arthroscopic surgery and like, got it fixed. And this was before I was introduced to sports psychology, and I really struggled coming back from that injury. Like I really had significant fear of re-injury. I didn't trust my knee I was big into snowboarding and rock climbing at that time. And I really struggled with pain management with my rehabilitation exercises and my physical therapy. And I just struggled coming back from that. And so then fast forward a few years, I happened to be in the middle of my program in sports psychology, and in a fluke accident injured my knee again. Different injury, same knee. So this time I tore my MCL. And immediately when they were bringing me down the mountain in the sled, I thought to myself, okay, your recovery is now your sport. And everything you're learning about optimal performance for athletes, you're going to apply that to recovering. And I did. And my experience was so profoundly different from my first injury. Like I came back to have my best season ever. Like not only did I thrive through the whole process of recovering, but like all those that the mental training I did really helped me like moving into the next season. And so that was a big catalyst of like, oh my God, everybody needs to know this, like the impact that this can have.
Okay. Well, and I listened to your book again this week,
Ah,
and I definitely hear your book in your answers.
yeah.
Uh, Tell the listeners a little bit about writing that book and developing the inner athlete or the injured athletes club.
Yeah. So it took me a while from the beginning of my career and sort of and my experience in recognizing that until like the podcast and the book and the support group came. But I had always like I had done some support groups on collegiate campuses and started to recognize how powerful it was for them to be able to talk to each other. So from that experience, I thought, man, I wish I could, like, I wonder if I could do this online somehow. And just because a lot of times people feel isolated and they feel like there isn't anyone that gets it. And I was like, but there are a lot of injured athletes all over the planet. So how can I bring them together? So that had been sort of lingering in the back of my mind. But then when I decided like, okay, it's time to write the book, I just recognized um I there were all these resources for practitioners working with injured athletes. And there was research and textbooks, but there was nothing for the athlete. Like there were no resources for the athlete. And I was like, but this is ridiculous. Okay, it's time to write the book. And so I was able to collaborate with a wonderful freelance journalist that interviewed all the athletes and brought those stories in. And she's also my co-host for the Injured Athletes Club podcast. So as we were talking about the book, that's when I decided, oh, it's time to pull the trigger on this Injured Athletes Club, and created the support group in the podcast to help kind of create an ecosystem of support for athletes and injury.
Okay. You what's one thing you think athletes need to know or remember when it comes to rebounding from injuries and the
Yeah.
adversity that goes with it?
I think a really significant one is that thought that I had to myself when I got pulled down the mountain, which was you are still an athlete and your recovery is now your sport. So sometimes athletes, when you're injured, you feel like if I can't do my sport, I cease to be an athlete. Versus this idea of like, this just happens to be where you're at on your athletic journey, and you are very much still an athlete. But now your job is to heal and recover so that you can get back, to whatever physical activity you're able to get back to. So I think that piece is that like you're kind of understanding that that's part of what's happening for athletes is that if you're feeling sad or grief, that it's that you're feeling disconnected to that part of your identity, that athletic identity, but you're still an athlete. So let's use that mindset to be able to help you through this time versus feeling like it's disappeared.
So what's one of your favorite go-to mental skills that you have seen trans helps athletes transform their experience?
There's a few. Uh, there's there's a few, but one that like immediately comes to mind, and it's funny because it's not like so I have a lot of different like mental training tools and interventions that I
Yep.
use, and this one is more of like a framework almost that I like to introduce to
Ah,
athletes, and it's called Go Far. So like if you want to go far in your recovery, you have to feel, accept, recover. So it hits a lot of different pieces, right? So in order to so much of us hold kind of our recovery back because it's hard to accept that we're actually injured and we don't want to be injured. And in order
mhm.
to get to that place of acceptance so that you can like, okay, now my recovery is my sport. What do I want to do? Before you can get there, you have to feel your feelings. So you have to allow yourself to feel, understand what those emotions are and feel whatever the
Yeah,
feelings are in order to get to a
yeah.
place of acceptance. And then, okay, now what do I want to do next?
Yeah, well, and I find that that's one of the biggest things that holds athletes back is the acceptance piece,
Yeah.
acceptance of what they feel and realizing that if they fight it, they're actually going to make it worse.
Exactly. Yeah. And
Yeah.
prolong the process. Yeah.
Right. Yep, that makes sense. Um, so uh, I assume you've worked with athletes who've had multiple injuries.
Yeah.
How do you help them overcome their fears of re-injury?
Yeah, it's tough when people get into a like a cycle of injury and re-injury. And
Mhm.
sometimes it's like re-injuring the same body part, but other times it's like they're overcompensating and now they've created a different injury. But they just or it might be that they have reds and they're having like multiple stress fractures over time. So part of it kind of it depends on what the cause is. And the biggest piece is it's hard because you feel like you can't trust your body anymore. So that's the piece of like, how do we really figure out what's happening, what the cause is, so that we're not just putting
Yeah.
band-aids on it if you're in this cycle of re-injury. So that's part of the conversation. Um, and the other thing I think sometimes that contributes to that is so if I'm working with an athlete and they're in a cycle of injury, but it's because they have a tendency to push too hard too soon to come back and then they get injured and are dealing with something else. When
Mhm.
that's the case, then the work we're doing might be a little bit different, where we're kind of flipping the script for them on what it means to be mentally tough. So for those athletes, I tell them like, what's interesting is what I've come to realize over the years working with them is that they were trying to apply the same framework of what works for them when they're a healthy athlete to being injured, right?
Oh,
And so like,
yeah,
oh, if I set this goal and I work my ass off, I accomplish the goal. And that template, it doesn't work the same when you're injured. And so what I've had to do is kind of help them flip the script on like, you're an athlete. We know you can push through the pain. Like that's not what's in question, right? So for you right now, a sign of your mental toughness is not whether or not you can push through, it's whether or not you can hold back. Because for them, that's going to be supremely harder than pushing through the pain. And so, and usually, as soon as I say that, they're like, "Oh my God, you're right!" like, like that is much
yeah.
harder and a sign of my mental toughness right now.
Well, and the way I kinda look at that is it's like the mini donut rule, the first 5 are great, the last 5 are
Right?
terrible, right?
Yes, that's
So,
right.
the law of diminishing returns with stuff like that
Yes,
can definitely get in the way. Yeah.
absolutely.
Um, when you've had athletes get traumatized by their injuries, how did you help them get through it?
Yeah, it depends like so because that would happen, right? Like especially with, if you've gone through I mean there's different reasons why an injury might be traumatic, right? Or why it might be interpreted that way. And sometimes is like, you know, it not only is affecting your athletic identity, but it has affected every part of your life, right? Like if one of my cyclists going through a bike crash. So so part of it depends on like um their how they're taking it on as a trauma and whether or not I assess they need support outside of the support that I give, right? So if I've now assessed like, oh, this is something that's like we need some clinical support for this person, that
Yep,
might be the thing that they really need in order to recover. And so that's part of the kind of the assessment process is figuring out like, am I the best person to help? Because that's my primary role is to figure out like what is it that this person needs, what kind of support that do they need in order to navigate this moment in their life. And it's not always me, and so then if I assess that, then I make sure that I help them get the support that they need. But then if it's if I am the right person and it's sometimes they just need, with that kind of navigating that, they need some tools. So the brain is very much wired to protect the body, and sometimes it goes
yep,
into overdrive. And so they need
yeah,
tools to help the brain and the body. So both like physiological tools as well as cognitive tools to be able to engage the sympathetic, system of your central nervous
right,
system so that you feel safe, right? So that you're not feeling
yeah,
like you're always under threat every time you go to practice or go to your physical therapy. So sometimes it's just like, oh, okay, we need to give you some tools to throw a wrench in that feedback loop.
okay. So, um, in the book Rebound, you talk about the, time travel trap.
Ah,
Could
yes.
you explain what that is and how athletes
Yeah.
move past it?
Yeah. So the time travel trap is like we all have a tendency to time travel into and kind of like hang out in the past or hang out in the future. So if you're hanging out in the past, you might be sort of ruminating on things that you wish you did differently or things that you wish had gone differently, or comparing yourself now to what you were able to do before you were injured, right? So that's like time traveling into the past. And then time
Yep,
traveling into the future is like, dealing with all of the worries and the what ifs. I call them the dreaded what ifs. Like, well, what if this happens? What if that happens? Which is very easy to do for injured athletes when you're, a big challenge is like dealing with the timelines. Like, oh, but they said I should be better by this time, but my body isn't. What does this mean? And so, kind of like they'll time travel into the future. So, a big part of what we talk about is like, how do you make sure that your feet and your head are in the same place at the same time and kind of bringing yourself into the present moment because that's the only place you have any influence over to be able to take action on. So really it's like, okay, let's come back to this moment. And a big part of that, if I find they're kind of time traveling, is to make sure that they have gone through the process of actually formally redefining their goals. Because sometimes what happens is if they haven't gone through that process, there's part of their brain that's still holding on to the goals that they had set for themselves before they were injured. And so then they're not able to bring themselves into the present moment and recognize the milestones of their recovery that are important to celebrate because that helps internalize confidence. So that's a big, if I find that they're time traveling, that's something I'm always assessing is like, okay, it might be time to like, let's look at your goals right now in your recovery.
Okay. So what do you think what's something that athletes often neglect in their recovery that you wish they didn't?
Asking for support. I
Ah,
think it's so huge. Like we
yeah,
see this in the research, like how critical it is, and that having a strong support system is a buffer
yeah.
against stress. So I think, and we all have different reasons why people find it hard sometimes to ask for help. They don't want to be a burden. They know the other people have a lot going on. They're afraid, they've asked for help in the past and people have said no. Like there's all different reasons that hold us back. And really sort of recognizing like, oh, this is a time to rely on your support team. So that's a big conversation I'll have too, is like kind of assessing what kind of support they have, helping explain the different types of support we need, and then figuring out, okay, let's figure out some resources for you to have a team because that's what you really need during this time.
Okay. Since you started working in this field, have you seen the view of mental performance and working on it or mental health change? And do you feel like it's actually, well, I'm leading the witness there a little bit, but do you think the changes you've seen have helped or harmed athlete recovery?
That's a great, great question. I definitely, it's kind of both and. I've definitely seen significant change in the field since I started, which is very exciting. It's not quite as fast as we would like, but change doesn't always happen fast. So, but it's been very significant. Like when I started 20 plus years ago, I was still having to explain to people what I do. And now there's definitely greater awareness of what a mental skills coach is, what sports psychology is, how it can help, that it's not just for people that are falling apart or broken, right? So it, and there's a lot more acceptance and understanding of its impact and value, and that's been pretty significant. I think a lot of that came from athletes, from elite athletes talking about the importance of mental health and being open about that, and that has definitely helped shift things. That it's being talked about more, and so I have seen a significant, and then I've seen that trickle down to injured athletes where when I wrote the book, I remember Cindy and I, my co-author, we would be during these writing retreats, like I'd stop in the middle of writing and be like, how does this not already exist? I can't even believe that there's no book out there like this to help injured athletes. Like this is ridiculous that this is and so now we're seeing more and more support for that specific time in an athlete's athletic career to support the injury. So it's definitely changed, and I think for the better. But I also think there's definitely a lot of room to grow too, specifically with the support around injury.
Okay. Well, what do you think is one thing a person can do to help destigmatize or normalize talking about it?
Yeah, I think that just knowing that it's normal, like man, injury injury recovery is a roller coaster of emotions. And like any injured athlete is going to tell you, it is as much your recovery is as much mental as it is physical. And so it's okay to talk about it. Athletes know that that is a part of the process. I think for so many years, like the support that we give athletes during recovery has been focused on the physical because it's a physical experience getting injured and didn't really recognize like there's a mental recovery that needs to be addressed also, and that your psychological readiness is just as important as your physical readiness when it comes to returning to sport and physical activity. So I think just knowing like anything that you're feeling as an injured athlete, I guarantee you, you are not the only one that has felt that. And so really, instead of I think even just in the language that we use around injury of like being sidelined, for so many years that was it. It was just like you're cast aside, like, okay, great, good luck, and we'll see you when you get back and can, contribute to the team again. That's still present versus like, oh, this happens to where you are, so here's what you're working on today, right? So coaches, and coaches have a lot going on, and their primary job is like, has to do with the outcome of performance. So it's sometimes easy for them to be like, I have a team that will help you, and I trust that team, and don't realize kind of what that does to the athlete to kind of cast them aside versus like how do we integrate that, like okay, this happens to be where you're at, so this is what everyone else is doing and this is what you're doing today. You're going to visualize healing and you're going to go do your PT, and then you're going to come to the field and observe and tell me what whatever it is that like that just make it normalizing like
Mhm.
injury happens. Like it doesn't have to be the worst thing that happens, but it's I think because of the way that we've treated it for so many years, it very much feels like it's the worst. And it does suck, right? Like nobody wants to be
Yeah.
injured. But it doesn't have to be there's ways that we can address it where it doesn't have to feel like absolute horror and dread.
The when you were talking, it made me think of something that I've seen in both college and professional football is that more and more you see coaches going out when players are injured.
Yeah.
That's definitely a newer thing within the last like I don't know, probably 5 years. But that leads to my next question, which is what is something if uh what is something that you wish trainers, coaches, and medical professionals and actually teammates knew when it comes to helping athletes recover?
um I think one of the things I wish that they knew was that how impactful it is for the athlete to have support and to reach out just in like, hey, just thinking about you, how are you doing today? Right? Like that it's and it's just everybody's very busy. We're pulled in so many directions. So oftentimes, even if someone's not reaching out, it doesn't mean that they're not thinking about you and it doesn't mean that they don't care, but it because it feels so isolating when you're injured, like to just recognize um, that how important that is to that player. And what's really interesting about it too is like some of the research shows that the impact of perceived support has a bigger impact on the stress response than actual received support. So just the athlete knowing, like believing, having the perception that if I need support, it's going to be there for me, even if they don't reach out for it. And sometimes you can help that as a teammate or a coach of just checking in and be like, hey, how's it going? I just want to see how you're feeling today. How are you feeling about your recovery?
Okay. Well, and you kind of answered the next question I had. Um, so the follow up to that is, in your experience, can you tell me about coaches that don't handle athletes well, or medical professionals in injuries well, and what is it that they do that holds them back?
I think there's a couple different things. I think sometimes not recognizing, so there's four different types of support that athletes need. It's tangible, informational, motivational, and emotional. And so sometimes uh, healthcare professionals or coaches are coming in and they're sort of trained for informational support, and they're immediately coming at the injured athlete with information when really in that moment the athlete might need some emotional support. So just like starting that conversation with addressing that so that the athlete can hear you, because if the athlete's freaking out and you're just coming in with information for them, they're not going to hear you. They're not going to hear anything else, because what they need is they have the psychological need of the emotional support in that moment. So you coming in and saying like, "Hey, I know this has been really challenging for you. I've been thinking about you. How are you doing today?" It's like, "Oh my God." Like I can't even tell you how many athletes I've worked with that would be like, "Are you kidding me? That would be amazing." Like shoulders drop, like, "Oh," and in 2 minutes, they've addressed that need, and now you can do the informational support. So just really understanding the importance of that. I think the other piece too is like really making sure you are aware of the language that you use and the look on your face. So athletes sometimes will, like if you're working with your athletic trainer or your PT, uh, and maybe the athlete's feeling pretty good about their recovery, but then they go in and they see a look on their athletic trainer's face, and they perceive it in a certain way. They're like, "Oh my God, I'm not doing as good as I thought." So just being aware of like your body language and the actual words that you use, like, "Oh wow, you should be further along." Like, no, or this happens more with
Uh,
medical providers of like, "Oh, well, you'll probably never run again." Like, do not say that in the first. I can't tell you. I should do a research study of how many people have been told that and are now back to running and racing. Like, you have no idea in that first session. So shut your big mouth. It makes me so mad.
well, yeah, I remember I had an athlete who tore her ACL, and
Hmm.
the trainer said in the elevator on the way to the training room, the next year of your life is going to be hell." And
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh,
You
like, yeah,
just, oh my God,
yeah,
you have to
yeah,
understand the power of
yep,
your words. Yeah.
yeah."
Uh,
Well, and the other thing that strikes me about your answer was your first answer, which is listen more,
yes. Right. Yes.
right?
Absolutely.
Because
Yeah.
essentially what you were saying is you need to listen for the emotion of it
Yeah.
before you offer information and talk.
A hundred
Yeah.
percent. Yes.
Okay. So last question, Carrie. If you could give athletes, parents, and coaches one piece of advice about navigating this setbacks, physical or mental, what would it be?
Mm. Um, I think I think the piece of advice would be to not be afraid of the setback. Like it's a part of life. It's a normal ongoing part of life, and this just happens to be the setback that you're facing right now. And but you would absolutely prefer to not be facing this setback, but you are. And to also I think trust that like we're very much wired for resilience. Like we are, I mean, there's just like countless stories over history, and even in this moment in time, where you can point to people's resilience, incredible resilience. Like, so you're meant to be able to get through this, and to just maybe remember that the way you're feeling in this moment is not necessarily how you're going to feel tomorrow or the next day or even an hour from now. So, in a moment when you're feeling a big emotion, it can feel so very overwhelming. And sometimes it's just important to remind yourself of that, of like, how I'm feeling right now is not necessarily how I'm going to feel tomorrow. So, what's in my control and what can I take action on right now?
Well, and I think what you're pointing to, you can agree or disagree, but I often think the work that we do, a lot of it is uh, the biggest setback is or the hardest, the easiest thing to see, but the hardest thing to execute is seeing your emotions as information, not instruction.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And they really are meant for their messengers. And if you fight against it, you're not going to get the message. Like, so I think that's absolutely accurate.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for your time. Could you tell the folks that are listening, um, if they want to buy your book or inquire about your services or the Injured Athletes Club, how they go about doing that?
Yeah, yeah. So you can head over to our website, Injured Athletes Club, and there's all kinds of resources there. And then my website is carriejackson.com. And you can also follow, so my social media handle on Instagram is at Feed the Athlete. And or you can follow the Injured Athletes Club at Injured Athletes Club on Instagram too. And there's all kinds of really great resources to help injured athletes. I'm actually opening up a support group right now. I have like an online 8 week program where athletes get to come together. So there's just all kinds of great resources over there.
Yeah. Well, and I'll admit part of the reason that I had you on or thought of you is because my son has had injuries the last 2 hockey seasons and he's going
Oh,
into his last year. And I noticed in my own head, like, "Oh, I wonder how he's doing with that. Wonder how I'm doing with that." So,
right? Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. All right. Well, thanks for joining me today.
Oh, my pleasure. Absolutely. Thank you for having
Yeah,
me.
well, and I think it's a wealth of great information and it's a part of sports that's often neglected,
Yeah.
but it's also absolutely something that everybody has to deal with.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
All right. Well, thanks again, Carrie. Have a
My
great day.
pleasure. Thanks, you
Enjoy
too.
your summer weather in California.
I will. Thank you.
Okay. So before we go,
Yeah.
uh, if you'd like, uh, I'll obviously have this edited. If you
Cool.
want to
Okay.
see it ahead of time, or if there's anything off the top of your head, like where you're like, oh, I don't like that's too controversial, or I didn't
I'm
I said
I'm good.
something dumb. Okay.
Yeah, you can put it out. I do these like a lot. So, and I'm totally fine. Whatever I say that day, that's what I said.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Well, and I
So I'm
can't
good.
think of anything you said that was controversial. So,
Okay, good. I
but
might have
but
put in
some
a
people,
swear word or two, but
yeah, and I don't my people don't care about that. And I feel
okay.
like sometimes I feel like when you work with athletes, you have to know how to swear.
Exactly.
And there is an art to doing it the right way.
100%. Yes, I agree with
You
both of
can't go
those.
too much, but you can't be too well, you remember the old character Stuart Smalley from Saturday Night Live?
Yes, yes, I do.
Yeah. Actually, when I do trainings for therapists about how to work with athletes, that's the
Oh,
first video I show
oh, that's great.
because stereotypically what I've had happen is
Great.
athletes who come to me, right? They go to Stuart Smalley and
Yes.
then they're like, well, this person doesn't get me.
Yeah.
The best one
Oh, that's
ever
great.
is Stuart Smalley and Michael Jordan.
I think I've seen that one because I shared a Stuart Smalley story about like, yeah, like that's the stigma around like affirmations and like,
And
that's
then
awesome. I gotta look
the
that one up.
next the next best one is Charles Barkley.
Oh, nice. Definitely haven't seen that one.
And when he does Charles Barkley, he says, "Well, I assume since you're such an accomplished basketball player, you've won numerous
Oh
championships."
my God.
Which,
I'm writing it down.
yeah,
I gotta
yeah,
look
yeah.
that up.
I'm sure I know they're both on YouTube.
Oh my
It
God.
goes right up there with. Did you see the TCU troll
That's
of
great.
Bill Belichick this week
Yes.
about about
Oh my
that his
God.
girlfriend is in middle school?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah, I think that's been going around for a bit.
Well, yeah, that
Not
whole
that
thing.
specifically, but yes, yeah.
Well, that whole thing is hilarious
Oh my
and
God.
sad at the same
Well,
time.
I know exactly. Yeah. Oh
All right.
man.
Well, thanks again for your time. I
Yeah,
appreciate it, and I
my
appreciate what
pleasure.
we did in class. So,
Oh, I'm so glad. Yeah, it was great to see you.
yeah, good to see you. All right. Enjoy your day.
Thanks, you too. Bye.
Yeah, bye.